Hey guys, I'm T and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, we make trendy and fun crochet tutorials twice a week, and if you haven't already, smash that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to join in on the fun. For today's tutorial, we're making a classic halter top. For this halter, we have an Alpine stitch chest detail, clean ribbing via slip stitches, and simple straps to tie it all together. Quick, easy, and modern. Speaking of, if you're looking for more modern makes, you are in the right place. We have hundreds of modern crochet tutorials and patterns with more coming weekly, so consider clicking the bell to subscribe and you'll never miss an upload. Also, do me a huge favor and give this video a big thumbs up if you like it, or 2 thumbs down if you don't. Either way, it's a great way to show support so I can keep putting out free tutorials every Wednesday and Sunday. Now it's time to go on the show, so without further ado. For this project, any category 4 yarn will work, but I used a total of 95 grams of yarn, and that's 205 yards if you're stateside. As for tools, a 5mm hook, scissors, stitch markers, and a tape measure. There is a written pattern down below. Use offer code TCDDIY for a discount off any $9.99 plus order, and enter this week's pattern giveaway by telling me if you are team untangle or cut when you hit a snag in your yarn. I find untangling yarn really satisfying, so it's untangle for me, but I do have a skein of yarn that is impossible to untangle, so I've shoved it somewhere in the house and I haven't touched it since. Details for the giveaway down below. We're using 3 stitches for this project, and they'll be as follows. Chain, slip stitch, single crochet, and double crochet. This tutorial is made for a size small, but you can adjust it for your size, and we explain that to in the video, so let's get started. Getting this top started, we're all going to grab our category 4 yarn and make a slip knot. Then we're all going to grab our 5mm hook, and no matter what size we're making, we're all going to start with our Alpine stitch detail, so we're going to start with a chain 1. Then after that chain 1, we're going to chain an additional 2, and that chain 2 does not count as a stitch, that's our turning chain. Now from here, into the first chain that we made, or the third chain from our hook, we're going to insert with 3 half double crochets. So yarn over, into that first chain that we made, we're going to insert with our first half double. So insert, pull through to get 3 loops on our hook, then yarn over, pull through all 3. 2 more into that same chain, so yarn over, insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3, there's 2, and then 1 more into that same stitch, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. So far, all of us should have 1, 2, 3 stitches. Now for this part of our pattern, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work, and we're all going to start and end our row with an increase of 2 single crochets. So into that first stitch, we're going to insert with 2 single crochets. Insert, yarn over, pull through for 2 loops, then yarn over, pull through 2. There's our first single crochet. Since this is the first stitch, we're going to be putting 1 more single crochet into that same first stitch. So insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Now from here, we're going to put 1 single crochet into that following stitch. So into that second stitch from our previous row with 1 single, and then into that following stitch, which should be the last stitch from our previous row, another increase of 2 singles. So insert with 1 single crochet, and then into that same last stitch with a second single crochet. Now we should all have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches for our row 2. So let's get started on our row 3, or our first Alpine stitch row. So chain 2 and flip your work. So what we're all going to do is start our row 3 with 1 half double crochet. So yarn over, into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 3. Then we're going to do a front post double crochet, which is actually going to be where we're going to be increasing for this row. So yarn over. Take a look at our row 1, because every Alpine stitch row is going to be worked into our previous odd number row to get the texture that we want. We're going to take a look at our 3 half double crochets, making sure that we're not counting that chain 2 along the edge. So here's my first, here's my second, here's my third. Into that second half double crochet, we're all going to insert with our front post double crochet. So like I said, yarn over. Into that middle half double crochet from our row 1, we're going to insert underneath the body of that half double crochet and through the other side. Then we're all going to yarn over and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're all going to pull up tall to get the same height as our half double crochet. Then yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. Then yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. Now what we're going to do from here is a half double crochet into the middle stitch from our previous row. So yarn over. What we're going to do is skip 1 stitch from our previous row and then into the next with 1 half double crochet. So pull through all 3. And now to close off the increase for this Alpine stitch row, 1 more front post double crochet into that same middle stitch that our previous front post double crochet was worked into. So this one right here. So yarn over into that same middle half double crochet, bring your hook underneath, through the other side, yarn over, and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, again, pull up nice and tall, then yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then to close off our row 3, 1 half double crochet into the last stitch from our previous row. So yarn over. We are going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and into the last stitch we're going to insert with 1 half double crochet. Now our row 3 is complete and we should all have a total of 5 stitches. So here's my 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Like I said in one of our previous clips, every even number row is going to be a single crochet row. So we're all going to chain 1 and flip our work. For every even number row, like I said, it's going to be a single crochet row that's always going to start and end with an increase of 2 single crochets. So insert your hook into that first stitch and do 2 single crochets. There's 1, there's 2 into that same first stitch. Then 1 single crochet into every stitch, leaving the last one. So here's 1 single, here's my next single, and then here's my following single, leaving that last stitch. Now into that last stitch, we're going to finish off the row with an increase of 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and there's 2. Now everyone's row 4 is now complete and everyone should have 7 stitches. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Now our Alpine stitch detail is going to be a 4-row repeat. We just finished up our first 2 rows. Let's get started on our following row, which is our row 5. So chain 2 and flip your work. Now some quick tips when it comes to doing our Alpine stitch detail. Like I said in one of our previous clips, each of our Alpine stitch rows, which is always going to be an odd number row, is always going to be worked into our previous odd number row. So since we're working on a row 5, we are always going to be inserting our hook into our row 3. And our stitches need to be staggered to get the texture that we want. So just as a really quick tip, taking a look at our row 3 or our previous odd number row, as we all can see, our first stitch was a half double crochet. So getting started on this row, we're going to insert with 1 front post double crochet into that half double crochet. We're never going to be working a front post double crochet into another front post double crochet. If we do that, that'll actually end up creating a ribbing, which is really pretty but not what we want for this piece. Then my last tip for this piece is that for every Alpine stitch row, there's going to be 1 additional stitch along the outside of our increase. So just as a really quick tip, our row 3 just had 1 stitch on the outside of our increase. Our increase was our front post double, half double, and front post double. So since we just had 1 stitch along the outside, and it will be mirrored on the other side as well, our following stitch will have 2 stitches. So let's get that started. Like I said, our stitches need to be staggered. My first stitch from our previous Alpine stitch row is a half double crochet. So now we're all going to be doing a front post double crochet to get started on row 5. So yarn over. Insert your hook into the half double crochet from our previous odd number row and through the other side. Then we're going to yarn over, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Then we're going to do a half double crochet into that following stitch. So yarn over. We're all going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the following, insert with 1 half double crochet. Now we should be at the middle increase. So like I said, on the outside of our increase, we have 1 additional stitch from our previous row. Our previous row had 1 stitch on the outside. This row has 2 stitches on the outside, and the increase is always going to be the same. So starting with a front post double crochet, we're all going to yarn over, inserting our hook into the middle stitch from our previous row, which was at half double crochet in between our 2 front post double crochets. Bring your hook underneath that half double crochet through the other side and pull through. Then pull up tall, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Then a half double crochet, so yarn over. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into that next stitch, our half double crochet, and then our front post double crochet to finish off this increase. So yarn over. Into that same stitch that our previous front post double crochet was worked into, we're going to bring our hook down, through the other side, yarn over, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and that is the increase for our Alpine stitch detail. Then our last stitches are always going to mirror the first few stitches that we did for the row. So right after this, we're going to yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. We're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next, insert with a half double, and then everyone's last stitch should be a front post double crochet. Now whenever our row finishes with a front post double crochet, we are going to be combining it with a half double crochet just to make sure that the edge of the row is secured down. So yarn over. We're going to insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous odd number row, which is this half double crochet right here. So bring your hook underneath, through the other side, and pull through. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're going to pull up tall, then yarn over, and pull through the first 2 loops. Now when we have 2 loops left on our hook, we're going to yarn over, and then insert our hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So bring your hook down, underneath that stitch, yarn over, and pull through for a total of 4 loops on our hook. Then yarn over, pull through all 4, and that is our front post double crochet combined with a half double. And for this row, we should all have a total of 7 stitches. So here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So getting started on our following row, which is our row 6, let's all chain 1, flip our work, and we're going to start and end our row with an increase of 2 single crochets with 1 single crochet into every stitch in between. Our row 6 is complete. We should all have a total of 9 stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. Now let's get started on our row 7. So chain 2 and flip our work. So like I said in one of our previous clips, our Alpine stitch detail is going to be a 4-row repeat. So it's basically going to be a repeat of our row 3 through 6 that we just did together. So I just want to make sure that we all have this down. So I'm going to do our following rows together as well. So getting started on our row 7, we're going to take a look at the first stitch that we have from our previous row, and it is a front post double crochet. Since our stitches need to be staggered, we're going to be inserting 1 half double crochet into that first stitch. So yarn over, into that first stitch, we're going to insert, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. Then everyone's following stitch should be a half double crochet, so we're going to work 1 front post double crochet into there. So yarn over, into the half double crochet from our previous row, we're going to bring our hook underneath the body and through the other side, yarn over, pull through. We're going to pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then we're going to do 1 more half double crochet because the last stitch that we're going to do before our increases is always going to be a half double crochet. So yarn over, we're going to skip 1 stitch from our previous row because this front post double crochet counts as that stitch, and then into the following with 1 half double crochet, and that does leave us with a total of 3 stitches before we work our increase, which is 1 extra stitch than our previous row. So we're all on the right track. Now our increase is going to be the same. So yarn over, inserting your hook into the half double crochet from our previous row's increase, bring your hook underneath the body and through the other side, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, then yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row and then into the next with 1 half double crochet, and then to close off the increase, another front post double crochet into that same middle stitch. So yarn over, underneath the body through the other side, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then everyone's following stitch along the outside of our increase is always going to be a half double crochet, so yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next with a half double crochet. And then we should have 2 stitches left. So 1 front post double crochet into our previous row's half double crochet, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. We We should all have one stitch left, so 1 half double crochet into that last stitch. And now we should have a total of 3 stitches on this side of our increase, which mirrors the 3 stitches that we have on this side. So we're all looking pretty good. We should all have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 stitches. Let's get started on our following row. Chain 1, flip our work, start the following row with an increase of 2 single crochets, put 1 single crochet into every stitch, and then into the last another increase of 2 single crochets. We are back. Our row 8 is complete, and we should all have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 stitches for everyone's row 8. Now we're going to get started on our row 9, so chain 2 and flip our work. So taking a look at that first stitch from our previous alpine stitch row is a half double crochet. Like I said, our stitches need to be staggered, so insert with 1 front post double crochet into that half double crochet. Pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then we're going to half double crochet. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next, a half double crochet. Into that following stitch from our previous alpine stitch row, which is a half double crochet, we're going to insert, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, and then right before we do our increase, 1 half double crochet. So our increase is always going to be framed with half double crochets no matter what row you're working on. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next with a half double crochet. Then to do our increase, which is always going to be the same, yarn over, preparing for a front post double. Insert your hook into that half double crochet, pull through, pull up tall, pull through 2, pull through 2, then yarn over, preparing for a half double crochet. Skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next with a half double crochet, and then 1 more front post double crochet into that same middle stitch. So insert, pull up tall, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Now that our increase is finished, we're going to finish off our row. So like I said, our increase is always going to be framed with half double crochets. So yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row, insert with the next with a half double crochet. Then yarn over, preparing for a front post double crochet, into the half double crochet from our previous alpine stitch row, pull through tall, pull through 2, pull through 2. Then yarn over, skip 1 stitch from our previous row and into the next with a half double crochet. Now this row is going to end with a front post double crochet combined with a half double. So yarn over, into the last stitch from our previous alpine stitch row, which should be a half double, pull our work through, pull up tall, and pull through 2. When we have those 2 loops on our hook, yarn over, and insert your hook into the last stitch from our previous row. So insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and pull through all 4 of those loops. Now everyone's row 9 is complete, and we should all have a total of 11 stitches. So here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Getting started on our row 10, chain 1, flip our work. Start and end this row with an increase of 2 single crochets with 1 single crochet into every stitch in between. We are back. Our first 10 rows for our alpine stitch detail is complete. Now what we're all going to do from here is continue to repeat our 4 previous rows, and if you need any tips on those or to rewatch it, all of those timestamps will be linked in the description. We're going to continue on with those 4 rows until we get an alpine stitch portion, the height of the detail that we want to be. So this portion is completely up to you. So all we're going to do is just place the point of our alpine stitch detail where you want the point to be when you wear it. Then just continue on until you get the depth of the neckline that you want. So if you would like to cover more of your chest, you're going to do more rows, or if you would like to show a little bit more, you're going to do fewer rows. But either way, I will meet you back right after we finish up a repeat of row 3. Alrighty, so we are back. I have just finished up my alpine stitch detail. I have a total of 19 rows, and its height is roughly 6 inches or 15 centimeters, and this is the height for my alpine stitch detail to be. Now from here, we're just going to single crochet along the edges just to clean it up, and then we can get started on the rest of our piece. So from where we're at, since we all should have ended right after a repeat of our row 3's alpine stitch detail, we're now going to turn our work and single crochet along the edge of our piece. So what we're going to do is put 2 single crochets into every side alpine stitch row, and then 1 single crochet into every side single crochet row. So let's get this started. Everyone's first row should be a side alpine stitch row. This is my top loop right here. I'm going to find that and insert with 2 single crochets. So there's 1 and then there's 2. Our following side row should be a side single crochet row. This is mine right here. Going to find that top loop and insert with 1 single crochet. And that's it. Let's do this again. Everyone's following side row should be a side alpine stitch row. So we're going to find that top loop. This is mine right here. So I'm going to insert in through there with 2 single crochets. There's my first. And then into that same top loop with my second. And then into our following side row, which is a single crochet row. Find that top loop and insert with just 1 single crochet. We're going to continue this until we reach our point, and then I will meet you back. So we've just made our way down with our single crochets. Now, before we move on, everyone is going to need to end on an odd number. So if you ended on an even number of stitches, just go ahead and add 1 extra stitch into that last side row. And we are going to do a middle point once we have a single crochets finished. So what we're going to do is chain 1 and insert your stitch marker into that chain space. Then working our way up the other side, we're going to continue on with the same single crochet row. So 2 single crochets into every side alpine stitch row, 1 single crochet into every side single crochet row, and if it ends on an odd number, you're going to add 1 extra stitch into that last side row. So basically, if you had to add an extra stitch on this side, you're going to need to add an extra stitch on this side as well, because we should have the same amount of stitches on both sides. Make your way all the way up. Once you don't have any more side rows left to work into, do a chain up of 1 and cut, and then I will meet you back. So my single crochet row along the edge of our alpine stitch detail is all finished. We did do a chain up of 1 and cut, and now we're going to get started on the length of our piece. So what we're all going to do is insert our hook into our stitch marker stitch, and then start by making a chain the length that we'd like for this top to be. So making sure that we're placing this last alpine stitch row the depth that we'd like for our neckline to be, and we can make our chain as long as we like the top to be. It can be cropped or full length, that is completely up to you. I'd like for mine to be cropped, so from where we're at, I'm going to insert my yarn onto my hook, pull through, then I'm going to make a chain that is 2.5 inches or 6 centimeters, and that is a chain of 12 for me. So now that we have our chain, we're now going to do a slip stitch row all the way up. So block off that last chain and do a chain 1. Now that chain 1 does not count as a stitch, that is our turning chain. Then into that chain that we blocked off, or the second chain from our hook, we're going to insert with a slip stitch. So insert, when we have those 2 loops on our hook, yarn over it and pull through both of those loops. Let's do that again. Into that next chain, insert, yarn over, pull through both loops. Once more, insert, yarn over, and gently pull through both loops. And continue with 1 slip stitch into every chain, leaving the last one. Chain, remembering not to tug too tightly, otherwise the following row could be too tight to work into. We put 1 slip stitch into every chain, and we have left the last one. Now into that last stitch, we're going to need to do an increase of 2 single crochets. Yes, I said single crochets, because the increase that we're going to do could get easily lost if we did it with slip stitches. And the single crochets basically look like the slip stitches once when everything's all finished up anyways. So into that last chain, we're going to insert our hook with 2 single crochets. So into that last chain with our first, into that same last chain with a second single crochet. And that is the increase for this row. Now we're going to need to connect it into the base. So just finding that next available stitch that's nearest to our stitch marker stitch, I'm going to find that stitch and insert, then yarn over and gently pull through everything. Now that slip stitch into the base does not count as a stitch. And we do need to work our way up to the following row, which is another back loop slip stitch row as well. So into that following stitch, working our way up, insert, pull through everything. Now that slip stitch also does not count as a stitch, and now we're going to flip our work. Now for this portion of our piece, we're always going to do an increase of 2 back loop single crochets into the stitch that's nearest to the base. So working our way down, we're going to find the last stitch from our previous row, making sure that we're not counting any of those slip stitches into the base, and we're going to start with an increase of 2 single crochets. So insert into that back loop, or the loop that's furthest away from us. We're doing this to get some really pretty ribbing, and start with your first single crochet, and then into that same back loop with your second single crochet. Now from here, continue with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. So into that next stitch, we're going to insert, yarn over, pull through everything, remembering not to tug too tightly, and again, into that next stitch's back loop or the loop that's furthest away from you. Insert and pull through everything. Continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of this row, we're all going to chain 1, flip our work, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again, and I will meet you back when we all have one stitch left right before our base. We are back. Now we should all have one available stitch left at the end of our row 3, and into that last stitch we're going to do an increase of 2 back loop single crochets. So into that stitch's back loop, insert with 1 back loop single, and into that same back loop with a second back loop single. Then we're going to slip stitch it into the base the same way that we just did. So finding that next available stitch into the base, we're going to insert, slip stitch into there to close off this odd number row. And then to work our way up to our following row, slip stitch into that next available stitch into the base. None of those slip stitches count as a stitch, and flip our work. And then repeat. So let's start this row off with an increase of 2 back loop singles. So into that last stitch from our previous row, not worked into those slip stitches into the base, we're going to insert with 2 back loop single crochets, and then 1 back loop slip stitch into the rest of our stitches. And all we're going to do is continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we reach our top corner stitch of our Alpine stitch detail. And then I will meet you back. Alrighty, so we are back. The first portion of our front panel is all finished. Now what we're going to do from here, since we all should have ended along the top, is continue on with our neckline with a few more increased rows just to get a really clean scoop. So from where we're at, let's all chain 1 and flip our work. So now since we're working on the neckline portion, we're always going to do an increase along the top of our piece. So finding the last stitch from our previous row, not that one slip stitch that was worked into the base, we're going to insert in through there with an increase of 2 back loop single crochets. So there's 1, and then there's 2. And then from here, put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. At the end of the row, chain 1, flip our work, and then put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, leaving the last stitch so we can do an increase together once more. Alright, so we are back. We have finished up our first neckline row where we started with an increase of 2 back loop singles and then put 1 back loop slip into every stitch. Then at the end of the row we did a chain 1, flipped our work, and then put 1 back loop slip into every stitch, leaving the last stitch. Now into that last stitch we're all going to do another increase of 2 back loop singles. So into that last stitch, insert with 1 back loop single, and then into that same last stitch, another back loop single. Now from here, we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows, just making sure that we're continuing on with an increase of 2 back loop singles along the top of our piece until this point that we have reaches where we want our strap to be. So I would suggest roughly about where a bra strap or a tank top strap would be. And also making sure that this Alpine stitch detail stays at mid-chest. Once we have that, I will meet you guys back right after an even numbered row or along the bottom so we can finish up with our underarm. Alright, so we are back. My neckline portion, although very tiny, is all finished up. I have a total of 32 rows now, and now we're going to get started on our underarm portion. So we all should have ended along the bottom. My width is now roughly 4 inches or 10 centimeters unstretched. Now we're going to get started on the underarm. So since we all should be along the bottom, let's put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch, leaving the last 2 stitches. So we are nearly finished with our first underarm row. We put 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch and left the last 2 stitches. Now we're going to do a decrease of 2 back loop slip stitches. So how we're going to do that is insert your hook into that second to last stitch's back loop, pull through. Also into that last stitch's back loop. When we have those 3 loops, yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops, and that is our decrease. So from here, chain 1, flip our work. Now we're going to start this row with a decrease as well. So insert your hook into that first stitch's back loop, pull through, into that next stitch's back loop as well. Then yarn over, pull through all 3 of those loops. Then finish up this row with 1 back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Then from here we're going to continue to repeat our 2 previous rows until we have an underarm portion that can stretch, because remember this does have some stretch to it, over to mid underarm. I will meet you back when we all have a total of odd number of rows, and then do a chain up of 1 and cut. Then I'll meet you back to finish up with the other side of our front panel. Alrighty, so I am back. I have just finished up the entirety of my underarm, I now have a total of 43 rows, and my width is roughly 4.5 inches or 12 centimeters unstretched. Now we're actually going to repeat everything we did here on the other side. The only difference is that we're not going to start with the chain. We're just going to insert our hook into the bottom corner stitch. So now that our hook is into our bottom corner stitch, we're going to chain one. That chain one does not count as a stitch, and we're going to repeat everything we did here on the other side for the same amount of rows, and then I'll meet you back so we can get started on the back panel. Alrighty guys, we are back. The entirety of our front panel is finished. Now all we're going to do from here is just continue on with our back loop slip stitch rows, but now with no increases and no decreases. That is going to be the back panel until the back panel can stretch around our body over to our first underarm portion. So I'm just going to get started on the first row with you. So from where we're at, let's all chain one and flip our work. Just start by finding that first stitch and insert into that back loop, and continue with one back loop slip stitch into every stitch. Now just as a really quick tip, I am going to be inserting my stitch marker into my first back panel row, just so I know where the back panel starts. But just continue this to reach the end of the row, then chain one, flip our work, and put one back loop slip stitch into every stitch again. Continue on with this until we get the back panel that we need. And then I will meet you back right after an even number row, sew along the bottom. Alright, so we are back. The entirety of my back panel is all finished. So counting from my first back panel row, I have a total of 55 rows, or counting from the first row that we did, getting started on this side of our front panel, I have a total of 98 rows, and we all should have ended along the bottom. Now, the total width that I have is roughly 19 inches or 48 centimeters unstretched, or just the back panel is about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters unstretched. Now from here, we're going to seam everything up. So we're going to fold our work in half, making sure that our work is still flipped right side out. So now that our work is folded in half, making sure that our Alpine stitch detail is faced outwards, we are then going to be inserting our hook into the corner stitch of both the front and the back panel, and then we're going to do an outside loop slip stitch seam to make it look like another back loop slip stitch row. What we're going to do from here is pull our working yarn through and do a chain one. Now to do our first outside loop slip stitch seam, we're all going to start by finding our first available stitch into the front panel. Insert your hook only in through that front loop, and then taking a look at the back panel, we're going to find that next available stitch into the back panel and insert only in through that back loop. When we have those 3 loops on our hook, we're all going to yarn over and pull through all 3 of those loops. Again, into that next stitch into the front panel, insert only in through the front loop, into the next stitch into the back panel, insert only in through that back loop, then yarn over, pull through all 3, and we're going to continue this until we don't have any more stitches left to work into. When we don't, I'll meet you back so we can get started on our strap. Alrighty, so we are back. We have made our way all the way up with our back loop slip stitch seam, and now we're going to get started on our single crochet row / our strap. So all we're going to do is start working towards our front panel because we want to show the front of our single crochets, and we're going to be putting 1 single crochet into every side row until we reach this top corner right here. So from where we're at, we're all going to start this row with a chain 1, and we're going to find our first side row. This divot is my first side row right here. I'm going to find that top loop and insert my hook, and if you're like me, you should have a tail end, and I do not want to weave that in later, so I'm just going to place that over my hook and then do 1 single crochet. Again, this is my following side row, which is this raised row right here. I'm now going to find that top loop and insert with another single crochet. Let's do that again. This divot is my following side row. Insert in through that top loop with a single crochet. And again, this raised row is my following side row, so find that top loop and insert with another single crochet. And we're just going to continue this until we reach this top corner stitch right over here. Alrighty, so we are back. We have just finished up putting 1 single crochet into every side row until we reached this top corner. As you guys can see, I have already made my chain, but what we're going to do from here is just make a chain that can reach up our shoulder, around our neck, and then down to our chest to reach the top corner stitch on the other side of our front panel. So what you're going to want to do is try this piece on, making sure that you're placing our last Alpine stitch row the depth that we want our neckline to be. So if you would like this to be a little bit higher, pull it up a little bit higher, or if you'd like to show a little bit more, pull it down lower. This is completely up to you. Then just make a chain that reaches around, that's comfortable for you, and then we're all going to single crochet it into this top corner stitch of the front panel. Now just to let y'all know, I made a chain of 65, and that's a total of 16 inches or 41 centimeters. Now let's single crochet it into the top corner stitch of the front panel. So all we're going to do is insert our hook, with just one single crochet. Now that's going to count as our first single crochet into the side row and also to connect our chain. Then from here, just like how we did on the other side, just put one single crochet into every side row, but now we're going to work all the way around the back until we reach our chain one space that we made on this side when we got started on this row. Once we do, slip stitch into that chain space, do a chain up of one and cut, and then I'll meet you back. Alrighty, so our single crochet / chain row is all finished up. Now the last thing we're going to do is another single crochet row, but now along the inside just to clean up our neckline. So all I'm going to do is just turn my work over and I'm going to insert my hook into any one of the chains and then start with our single crochets. So just put one single crochet into every chain. Once we reach the front panel, one single crochet into every side row, one single crochet into every stitch, then make your way all the way back up. Once we reach our chain space, do a chain up of one and cut. Alrighty, so we are back. We have just finished up single crocheting along our neckline and we are actually all done. Last thing we're going to have to do is just weave in all of our ends. And there you have it. Hope y'all enjoyed the tutorial. Join us on Instagram, Pinterest, or Twitter. Those links are down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Catch you on the next one. Bye!